Who said play ball? Well, first I want to say thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to come and join in this discussion. What we will do is we're going to identify some issues that affect all of us. We have sheriffs from both and deputies from Washington State, California, and Oregon. Again, can you hear me in the back okay? I hate microphones. Anyway, we're going to talk about some issues, and then we're going to get into a discussion. Each sheriff will come up and say their piece. And then we'll talk about a solution that we think is at least a partial solution. I don't think there's any one issue that can fix our problem today. It's going to take a lot of issues combined to make that happen. And we're going to talk about that. And I think you will benefit from it. And hopefully we can, everyone engage in that same action. And then we're also going to open it up for questions and answers towards the end. Okay? Now, all the sheriffs you see up here before you today, they come from various jurisdictions. And we are going to talk about the things that we all share, some of the issues that are common to all of us. With the introductions here, on the far right, your left, I have Sheriff John Lope. Sheriff resides in Mount Shasta with his wife Maxine and 4 children, 4 grandchildren. One of his sons, John Jr., is serving in the Army now. John's had 34 years in law enforcement and took office in 2011. He started out with Vacaville PD, then went to California Highway Patrol. He worked his way through the ranks. He worked in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and various other counties throughout the California area. At one time commanded over 400 people. He has a BA in criminal justice and currently pursuing a graduate degree. Retired full colonel with the U.S. Army Reserves with 38 years of active and reserve time. He's a Vietnam veteran. Let's see, he's got all kinds of awards and ribbons and you name it, he's got it. He wasn't done with just that, though. He also served in the Philippines, Haiti, Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. So he's kind of a busy guy. Next to him, we have Sheriff Robert Hudspeth. And he said it was okay for me to say this. He's the oldest sheriff in the state of Oregon. He's been in law enforcement 13 years. He's been a sheriff in Wheeler County, Oregon, for 4.5 years. He's got over 30 years as a nuclear physicist. I'm going to put him in the back of my catalog to remember this guy. Okay, then we have Sheriff Bruce Haney sitting on my immediate left. He's with Trinity County, California. He started out with the Los Angeles Police Department, went to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office. He was a county marshal, and he's been the sheriff now since 2010. And he started his law enforcement in 1990. Sheriff Dean Wilson sitting to his immediate left, currently living in Crescent City as a sheriff in Del Norte County with his wife Mary and 3 children. He's been in office since 2002. He has a BA in criminal justice. And on the far left, we have Sheriff Mike Poindexter. And he's from Moda. I knew it, did it. He served in the Marines. He's a Vietnam-era veteran. 28 years in California Highway Patrol, retired. Took office as sheriff in 2010. Okay, so that's your panel today that'll be talking about all the different things that we all have in common.
Let's give it to them, folks. Come on.
I also want to introduce 2 of the managers with the National Constitutional Sheriff's Association, Loma Morton and Rhea Kopekta from Roseburg area. Sure, if I can stay up with my own PowerPoint. What I want to share with you first, I want to share some comments to kind of get the ball rolling here. The catastrophic impact on our public health, safety, and welfare has been huge in this county. And we'll talk about some of the reasons that has happened over the years. And again, towards the end, keep in mind, we're going to offer a solution that was successfully employed. And we think it needs looking at by all the counties in all the western states. Now, just to give you an idea of the impact it's had on us. I know you can't read this in the back, so let me just talk about the state of the economy. On a national level, 1 in 6 Americans today lives in poverty. Over 23 million are unemployed. Spending, we've spent borrowed money. Securing overseas loans with our natural resources. Printing more money, creating inflation. $16 trillion in debt and growing. No national budget, or no balanced budget. Have they ever had one? Anyway, I don't know how you operate that way. The horrific cost of programs hidden within the massive bureaucratic documents. Jobs were sent overseas years ago. The voluminous federal rules, regulations, and policies suffocating small businesses and our ability to sustain ourselves, creating dependence upon federal subsidies. Now let's bring it to a little more local level if we can. Here in Josephine County, it's estimated we are actually about 11 or 12% unemployed. We're prohibited from using our natural resources to sustain ourselves, which we have been historically allowed to do. The Biscuit Fire, we lost over 500,000 acres. There are huge fires in California and all these other states, these huge fires, and the loss is just tremendous. In Oregon, since 1990, there's been a loss of 188 mills, lumber mills. In Oregon, prohibited mining for the vast minerals. This county has the richest mineral deposits in the entire West Coast, and we can't touch it. Restricting public access to the roads in our counties. They do not want you to be able to drive on a county road from one county into another. They want you to go up, turn around, come back out, and then take a freeway or a highway. That's a travel management plan that they've been working on for many years. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. The lack of adequate funding has crippled our public safety. I'm here to tell you that. We lost our juvenile detention facility. It had to shut down. So now we have to pay and transport the kids that need protection or troubled kids into Jackson County. We had to close the facility. The district attorney's office, they lost about 50% of their workforce. You can imagine how that's crippling us. The jail, as far as the sheriff's office, we lost 65 people. We had to lay off 65 people. So we're down to around 37, 38 people right now to run the jail, patrol, and everything else. I'll come back to that. Now here's something that I just saw the other day in all the reading I've got to do. The Sierra Institute, and I'm going to come back, the next slide you see is going to be a website. I hope you write it down and I hope you research it. What it talks about is there was an analysis done on the critical habitat for the spotted owl, and that's kind of what started it for us in the western states. But I'll come back to that. Between 1990 and 2010, the owner-occupied housing dropped 85%. Can you hear me in the back? I hate microphones. Okay, I'll try a little harder here. In Josephine County, this year, more than 300 kids didn't register in school. What's that mean? And the participation in the free or reduced price meal program that are in the schools, our kids are at 70% of our kids don't have food at home. I mean, it's a real problem. 31% of the kids living in Josephine County are living in poverty. Josephine County wages are 2/3 of what they are in the state of Oregon. Now remember I said that I'd like you to write this down. Please do. It's a 177-page document, and it talks about the critical habitat designation for the northern spotted owl, the assessment prepared for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They just came out with this quote, and it's in this document that I'm referring to. As an assessment, the report does not comport with sound socioeconomics assessment science. It lacks a sufficiently comprehensive evaluation of potential impacts. What they're saying, folks, is it could have been done better, it could have been done right the first time around, but we need to revisit this. And that study that if you look it up, you'll see that it did just that. Now you tell me, would you work for an employer that had that kind of hiring and laying off? You know, most people get into law enforcement and go through a lot of training and spend a lot of money, your money, getting trained and so forth. And with that roller coaster, they don't stay with us. We turned into a training facility for other agencies. You know, I checked it one time. I believe it was over a 10-year period. We threw away $10 million training that many more new people because they leave us and go somewhere else. We can't keep people paying the wages that they get here. We are the cheapest game in the house. My people can walk across the hallway and work for the city for $1,000 more a month. Okay? And then you've got the state police, which make a lot more than we do as well. So, you know, we are the cheapest players at the card table here. But it's very difficult to draw people in and retain them with that kind of a history. Our sheriff's budget over the last 8 years, as you can see in this diagram, I don't know if you can see the colors way in the back. The green on the bottom is the federal subsidy that we've existed on since 1930, 37, somewhere in that area. There was a time period when the timber was so lucrative. Between 1970 and 1980, the people in this county did not have to pay any taxes to support county services. Zero. For 10 years. Well, that's gone. That's gone away. And the problem is, as you can see in the graph, the green makes up less of our budget. The yellow, or the yellow color, the first time we actually drew money from the general fund was in the year 2008. And the black on top is what we generated internally as revenue. So you can see this year alone we dropped drastically. Like I say, I laid off about 65 people. And it's had a serious impact on the safety of this community. Give you an idea of what it looks like in our bed. We got a 262 bed jail. It was reduced to 30 beds, out of 262. Now we had 37 and a half employees when those times were good. We're now reduced to only 18 and a half people. And you can see the two charts. The chart on the left is in 2011, and it's 43% empty. But now we're at 89% empty. Now I will put this caveat to it. The commissioners just gave us enough money to bring back 2 civilians and 1 deputy in the jail, and it increased our beds by 39. So that plus the federal beds that account for the revenue we generate takes us up to 99 beds. And just to give you an idea, the national standard of when a jail is considered to be full is at 80%. For us, that's 210 beds. I don't know that we've ever done that. Patrol service, boy, the impact we're having is just horrendous. We operate right now 1 8-hour shift, 5 days a week. So that means there's 16 hours every day, and there's 2 days every week. I don't have a clue what's happening in this community. We have 1,642 square miles, population of about 85,000. 30,000 live within the city. They have good law enforcement in the city of Grants Pass, but they're broken as well because they can't put people in jail. We don't put people in jail. We haven't been able to. So we cite them a citation to appear in court. You think they appear in court?
No.
Nah. Why would they? Because they know we can't put them in jail. So these people are actually thumbing their noses when they commit their crimes, knowing doggone well law enforcement is not going to do a thing about it. In fact, one of the stories I like to share is one of the city police officers parked her car next to, or her squad car next to her regular car at home. So here comes this kid, and he's going to steal the police car. She heard the noise, went out, took him down at gunpoint, And you would think he'd go to jail, but they ended up citing him to appear in court and turn him loose. About a week later, he commits a burglary with a gun. Okay. I can tell you stories all day long. I have 3 patrol deputies to cover this entire county. 3. I've got 3 contract deputies that are committed to dealing with contracts, so I can't really use them. So I got 3 people to cover all the calls that come in to this community. We do not, when it comes to property crimes, all we do is record it, because you're going to need it for your insurance. If it's a person crime, we try to respond to that. That's our priority. There's a lot of crimes that you'll not see a deputy. We have made some access to our website that you can go and you can fill in the report and then tell your insurance company you made the report. And I want to share this with you. The insurance companies are in business to make money. So at some point, and quite frankly, I've talked to 2 different agencies, and they're at the point now where they're receiving so many claims that they're taking real note of this. What happens is, when it gets to a point where it is a lawless area, and that's what they classify it, they jack your price up by 3. So that's what happens. Anyway, we don't have proactive law enforcement. Calls for service are prioritized, and like I said, there's calls you'll not see us on. We just can't respond. Medical, you got a medical ambulance that shows up on the scene, they'll stage down the block. They will not drive up to that residence until law enforcement gets there. If they know we're not coming, they won't respond. They return to their base. It does create increased liability. It increases the risk to the deputies, the citizens. Citizens are now developing their own roving patrols. One of them concerns me greatly. I tried to tell them the complications and the ramifications of making a wrong mistake. And their comment to me was, excuse me for the language, it's bureaucratic bullshit. I knew they didn't hear a word I said. And that one scares me. We got another group that go out on patrol and they're doing a good job. They know what the law is and they're willing to abide by it. But, you know, I asked this group as well, when you catch somebody, what are you going to do with them? We can't take them into jail. So what are you actually going to do with them? If you're not, I'm digressing here, I'm sorry. In all fairness to these guys, I shouldn't do that. If you're not in a neighborhood watch program, you need to seriously consider it. But that's another topic. National average, deputies per 1,000 population, the national average is 2 deputies per 1,000. In the western states, it's 1.8. Here in Josephine County, it's 0.0006. All right, why is this important to you? We just laid off 66 people. The deputies, district attorneys, 50%. Closed the juvenile detention facility, and it cripples community safety. The reason I'm bringing this up is because this is going to happen to you next. Unless you're fortunate enough to have squirreled the money away and have the ability to deal with this better than what we do. Okay, with that, I think I'm sorry, let me get mine out of the way. Our focus strictly is public health, safety, and welfare. So the question is, how do we get into this mess? Well, someone once said that the United States is going to fall from within. It'll collapse without a shot being fired. How many of you have heard that? Okay, so I'm not alone.
It's on its way.
No nation in the world can do more damage to the United States than we can inflict upon ourselves. Think about that. How's that possible? Through public apathy or general ignorance, coupled with self-serving, unscrupulous, agenda-driven politicians and attorneys.
Amen.
It has become unpopular to discuss our Constitution, and the founding principles are no longer being taught at school, albeit Oregon Constitution says that they must be. Is it any wonder why today so many citizens display apathy and unfamiliarity? The price paid for our liberties is truly staggering, but seemingly today forgotten or taken for granted. John Adams quoted, Liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people. Okay. So how is this all happening? It's done with words. Words are not only used to create our country and all it stands for, but if not watched closely, it can also destroy it. Many individuals cleverly misuse, overuse, and intentionally obscure the truth by distorting words. We often see this in politics, government rules, regulations, and policies. Words such as democracy, freedom, republic, and justice have been twisted, abused, and misused for so long the original meaning has long been disparaged. One of the most popular words in our language today is democracy. We the people today believe it to mean freedom, and further believe it guides our daily lives. Democracy brings to vision the American flag, mom's apple pie. It's comfortable. It's a comforting word. It's been used for so long. People have adopted it. But the truth is it actually denotes unbridled mob rule. Democracy we're not a democracy, but rather a constitutional republic by which we became the most envied country and form of government in the world. In a republic, the government does not govern the people, but rather the people limit the powers and even less authority to our government through the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, thereby maintaining a check and balance of powers and a means of protecting the people's rights. The preamble of the Bill of Rights and the 10th Amendment reaffirmed that any power not explicitly delegated to the central government or explicitly withheld from the central government. The government derives its power from the people. The U.S. Constitution, again, words. When did it become a radical notion or concept to openly discuss the United States Constitution? By today's standards, anyone believing in or openly talking about the documents and the premise under which our great country was constructed is shunned and looked at with a raised eye. Yep. Or even worse, you end up on a watch list. Most recently, we see executive orders threatening free speech and the right to assemble and to address our government in direct violation of our guaranteed rights. Words in the Constitution define our way of life. These intuitive, encompassing, and effective words propagated the most successful economic and political experiment in world history. The United States became the most privileged country in the world. The American dream has lasted well over 200 years. A dream where an individual was guaranteed the right to speak freely, free to believe in the faith of their choosing, to be secure in their own homes, think for themselves, set their own goals, and learn from the mistakes. The American dream is not something we should be ashamed of. It continues to serve as an inspiration for other nations. The Constitution was written in plain language, so the average person could understand its intent and meaning. Why is it then, if the average citizen can understand it, the scholarly judges continuously return split decisions? Many of our leaders have lost sight of both the intent and meaning of these documents. I was recently instructed by a rather high federal agent that the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land.
BS.
I absolutely disagree with that.
Constitution is.
Article 6, paragraph 2 clearly states the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, not the Supreme Court. In Marbury versus Madison, the U.S. Supreme Court decision, all statutes and laws enacted by Congress must be in harmony with the Constitution. Our Constitution clearly describes and limits powers and authority to the three branches of our government. Legislative powers are granted or vested to Congress, not the executive or judicial branch. Ratification of our Constitution was only passed because of the Bill of Rights. At the time, and see if we're there right now, at the time, the overriding concern was how to prevent our government from becoming destructive to the very ends for which it was formed. Such a document was crucial to protect the people against the possibility of the newly formed government would usurp or reconstruct our Constitution. The government's sole purpose is to protect us. We the people vested in them only limited authority and even less powers. That seemingly has been reversed. We have turned from a nation led by the people to one being reluctantly drug along by the government. The rule of law is, by today's standards, considered an outdated legal concept, whereby people now answer to hundreds and thousands of arbitrary and unclear edicts from politicians and administrative organizations rather than clearly defined laws. The oath of office. Is this really a radical concept? Why did the framers of our Constitution feel it necessary to include the oath of office as a mandatory requirement? The oath is mentioned 3 times in the Constitution. Under Article 1, the senators, Article 2, the president, and Article 6, all state and federal officials shall be bound by the oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. So many of our elected leaders today lack the courage to stand up because they lack the understanding of the oath they take. When I took that oath, and I've taken oaths because I've been in various branches of military. I've taken the oath numerous times. And you know what, folks? I'll be the first to stand here and tell you, I didn't really know what it meant. Let it be clearly understood. We love this country and all it stands for. We simply demand that our elected officials uphold their oaths and act accordingly. Another word, mission creep. I'm trying to rush through this as quick as I can. Is that one on that one? I lost track of my slides. Anyway, mission creep. Overreaching rules and regulations, manipulating words. The problem isn't necessarily with the people. There's good people in these federal jobs, for example. They're good people, and their intent is good. It's the system that we have to take a look at. Seemingly, over time, usurpation and reconstruction have raised their ugly heads, which should not be a surprise. A term often used in military circles called mission creep seems to be a repetitive phenomenon that occurs in most organizations as well as governments throughout history. A concept or unit is formed by well-intended people. During the development or the implementation phase, needs and shortcomings become apparent. Because of this, the plan often morphs into something beyond its original intent. Our centralized government has taken a life on of its own and has, I strongly believe, usurped or reconstructed the Constitution and the doctrine of a republic form of government. The federal government is the largest employer in the United States today. They engage the golden rule. He who has the gold rules. Through the grants and stimulus handouts, they have brought a once productive country to her knees. There are today 32 federal law enforcement agencies, many of which now have the power of arrest and carry weapons. Where in the Constitution does it address this beyond the 10th Amendment? They are administrative agencies. This is the only way they can possibly engage under our constitutional government. I got the red slide up now, I'm sorry. Assimilation, yet one more word. Federal rules and regulations, as well as executive orders, have come fast and furious and seemingly continue to excel at an accelerated pace. Congress has legislative authority to make law within their own jurisdictions, not the executive or judicial branches. Where does the Constitution allow executive orders to be enforced as if they were law? These issues must be addressed and corrected. Why? The consequences of these voluminous rules and regulations are strangling our economy and our liberties. Because of the implementations, we find it near impossible to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our communities that we serve from a law enforcement perspective. With the recent advent of the National Defense Authorization Act and the subsequent strategic implementation plan from the White House, our federal government is attempting another large, cleverly conceived effort to circumvent constitutional protections from the people through assimilation by the federal government. I encourage you to look up those documents. The federal government's land management plans are yet another means to manipulate and direct our way of life. Do these plans parallel directions provided by the United Nations? Without question. Have our leaders taken the position of being subordinate to this world organization? You saw it on TV, I would assume. They've admitted it. those we put into offices are seemingly buying into this national obliteration.